What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of Talking Halos. I'm your host today, Jared Timms, and I'm joined alongside my co-host, my partner in crime, Nate Green. Nate, how you doing?
I'm doing fantastic, Jared. How about you?
I have a weird feeling you're not going to feel fantastic after this podcast, but
It's winter meeting time. It's fun. It's a good time.
we'll see. Apologize for not getting out a podcast on Monday. If you guys can't tell, it's a little bit of a sickness in me.
Nobody can tell.
Nobody can tell.
Literally nobody.
It doesn't sound. Tyler was just out here telling me. Fiance was out here telling me that I sound like shit and that I shouldn't do it. I think it was just because she didn't want me to record tonight.
That's probably it.
For the amazing fans, by the way. Side note, just hit 500 subscribers on YouTube. Absolutely love it.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you guys for that. That's awesome. Really do appreciate it. Keep it going. If you have a friend that likes Angels or baseball in general, send them our way. You know, we love talking baseball in general and Angels in particular. So, Nate, you mentioned it already. Winter meetings, big day, big day. Actually, honestly, it really was big Monday. In general, a lot of money was spent. And I have a feeling we're going to continue to see a lot of money spent on the next until Thursday, which is when the winter meetings end. And I feel like we're probably going to have a podcast every day. I would assume.
I think that's fair.
I think that's fair to say. We're probably going to put one out. So kind of be expecting that. We will see where it goes from there. But yeah, a couple big splashes. Of course, Justin Verlander goes to the Mets. Trey Turner goes to the Phillies. Interesting signings. I know we want to talk about Turner, but the big one for us, of course, it might not be big in the baseball world, but the big one for Angels fans. The Angels signed Charlie Sheen's brother, Carlos Estevez, from the Colorado Rockies. Nate, I would love our initial, and that was a joke, by the way. I would
yes.
I'm glad you got that. Love to know your initial thoughts on the signing, and I'll give mine after that.
Yeah. Initial thoughts. Why $6.5 million? Like, it's a lot of money for a guy who's not going to be like the for sure back end guy, and that's the frustrating thing for me. I mean, I'm a big closer guy. I think closers are important, and we could have easily gotten a closer for this amount of money, maybe even a little bit more, but I don't know. It's just tough when you got guys like Alex Reyes, who could easily be one of the best relief pitchers in baseball if healthy. You've got Craig Kimbrell, who going to be interesting to see how much he makes. Like, he could get somewhere between $7 to $10 million as well. There's just a bunch of different guys, and I'm not a huge fan of spending money on non-closers. Like, I think you either have starters who didn't make it in the org who could turn into really good relievers, or you have guys that could be got on minor league deals like we did with Davinsky and Holder, and how we've done in the past with Cishek and Watson. So I don't think it was necessary, but there is a little bit of hope that maybe he turns into a legit back end guy. But I don't know. He throws 97 to 100. Very average slider. Hopefully it's better outside of Coors. I know the numbers are better outside of Coors than they are in Coors, but I don't know. It's just a head scratcher. I wonder how many teams were willing to give him this much money. That's my biggest thing.
Yeah, and I like Carlos Estevez. I don't like the contract. Plenty. I mean, that's fair. I'm not a huge fan of it. The couple things that came out of this that I noticed right off the bat, he's reliable. He hasn't really been hurt in his career, knock on wood. Players come to the Angels, they kind of have that weird tendency to get hurt all of a sudden. Not sure what it is, but knock on wood. He's been fairly reliable in Colorado. You mentioned that. He's pitched in 60 plus games in 4 out of the 6 years there. And if you don't count 2020, I mean, when he pitched in 26 games, so he pitched in half the games that season for Colorado. He's basically been a 0.5 WAR guy his entire career, which is in a sense kind of what you look for out of a reliever. I agree with you though. I'm not giving a reliever this amount of money. I personally would never give anybody in the bullpen this kind of money. I wouldn't build a bullpen with $7 million, $8, $10 million contracts unless you're going out and getting one of those big guys, Josh Hader, Aroldis Chapman, one of those guys, Craig Kimbrell in the day. You know what I'm saying? Somebody who you can rely on to put up, who's going to close games out for you.
The guy who you're going to be able to give the ball to in the ninth inning and not have to worry about losing the game.
Yeah, essentially, yes. And I know the Angels have a couple of these guys waiting in the minors to really like Ben Joyce, who we talked to. Eric Torres is really interesting. Luke Murphy. I mean, they have a plethora of guys. Chris Rodriguez as well is coming off injuries. Um, Again, the couple things that I noticed: reliability, 100%. Um, I 97 miles an hour and doesn't strike out a lot of guys.
Yeah,
That
that's
means
weird.
there's something there, right? You get somebody you mentioned already, you get somebody out of Colorado, and we'll bring up his splits here in a second. You get somebody out of Colorado, the ball doesn't move there as much, and we saw that in break. I believe his slider breaks 2 inches less in Colorado. The split finger, which he also has as well, breaks 3 inches less in Colorado. I would assume the fastball has less horizontal movement on it. So you get a guy out of Colorado at all, and you have a good feeling he's going to be better. Again, however, I go back to the contract. I'm not a huge fan of the contract by any means. But this makes the Angels bullpen kind of interesting. You know, I know that, I'm bigger on Ryan Tepera than you are. I think Aaron Loop,
Way bigger.
that's fine. I mean, I think at best Ryan Tepera is your seventh inning guy. I think at best Carlos Estevez is your seventh inning guy. I think at best Aaron Loop is your sixth inning left-handed specialists in a good role. I think Jimmy Hurwitz, that guy, that's a sixth inning guy that you come in. He's going to regress a little bit. I think you don't know what you're getting out of Chris Rodriguez. What is Ben Joyce? What is Eric Torres? What are some of these kids? Andrew
Soriano.
Soriano, who might make the team out of spring. I'll let you guys know that. That's my surprise pick. So I don't know. What what is your feeling on the bullpen right now before we get on to shortstop talk?
The biggest thing that's a head scratcher for me is typically when you're building a bullpen, you build from the back. You start with the ninth inning and you work your way all the way through with the rolls. And it doesn't seem like they're kind of going that way. It feels kind of like let's just get quality pieces and hope those guys fit into a role. And I think that's been a big issue with the Angels, especially lately, is guys don't have roles. When you don't have a set role, it's very hard to be successful. You look at the teams that have been really good. I mean, the Astros just did it in the World Series. It was like I mean, you and I could have managed that team. We knew exactly who was coming in the seventh inning. We knew exactly who was coming in the eighth inning. And we knew exactly who was coming in the ninth inning. The only way things changed was depending on if the if the lefties were up, then maybe it was Norris. But other than that, you were looking at possibly standing Montero, Presley, all those guys. And it was just very obvious. Like those guys get into a rhythm and a routine of like hey, it's the seventh inning. I know my job is to get 3 outs in the seventh inning and move on. So that's kind of been the biggest head scratcher for me is like they're not really defining roles, is what it feels like. It's just kind of like, let's just get a bunch of guys and hopefully we get outs.
Yeah, they don't have an eighth inning guy. They don't have a closer yet. And I know that I'm not a big closer guy, but they don't have that guy to rely on. They don't have that guy to rely on, right? Is that fair to say? Like, if you can call it a closer, because I won't call it a closer. They don't have that reliable guy. Is that fair? Like, they don't have that guy that you can go to in a tough situation, right? That guy that you can bring in, bases loaded in the eighth inning. You're up by 2 runs, you're up by a run or something like that. Who you going to, right? You don't know that guy right now. Like Tepera hasn't shown that he can be that guy. Loop for sure hasn't shown that he can be
Yeah.
that guy. I think Quijada was in a sense that guy last year, kind of that high energy guy that you bring in. If Chris Rodriguez is healthy, he could be that guy. Of course,
Everyone wants it to be Herget, but Herget's not really that guy either. Yeah, it's a very odd bullpen. Yeah, it's just weird when you look at the successful teams, they are anchored with someone in the back end, and then they work their way eighth inning, seventh inning, lefty specialist, sixth inning, second lefty, and all of a sudden then you have your long reliever, and it's like there's your bullpen, and it really feels like the Angels are like, let's just throw as many arms in a bullpen that we feel are quality as possible, and hopefully we'll be able to get outs in the right situations. And Tepera, you might be getting outs in the seventh inning one night, and then 2 nights later you might be getting outs in the ninth inning. Estevez, you might be getting outs in the ninth inning and then the sixth inning, and just hopefully these guys will adapt to, be ready whenever your name's called. And the successful bullpens that I've seen, that I've been a part of, that that we've seen in the big leagues as well. Like typically they are very built on rhythm and routine. And it's like, hey, I know when I'm pitching, I know when I need to be ready, and it makes it really easy because everyone knows whose job it is.
Yeah, absolutely. And just before we get on to the shortstop market, of course, split wise, first half, second half splits. First half, Estevez had a 5.17 ERA. Second half, in 25 innings, he had a 1.40 ERA. You look at those home and road splits because you have to when it comes to Coors and not in Coors. His strikeout percentage was lower at home, 16.8%. He had nearly a 30% strikeout rate on the road. The walk rate at home was 14%. On the road, it was just above 5%. You look at the FIP at home was 4.51. At home, on the road, it was 3.64. So yeah, you look at him coming out of Colorado, and you hope there's upside there. For me personally, and I'm not going to tell Perry how to build a bullpen because he's done a pretty good job of it so far. I think that there's some very interesting pieces in the mix. I wouldn't spend money like this on a bullpen. That's just where I lie. So let's get on to shortstop talk. Of course, Justin Verlander signed, not a shortstop. Doesn't matter for the Angels. Pretty interesting. Way too much money. I think we can agree on that.
You know, it is what it is. The Mets don't really worry about too much money. They worry about can we win a World Series. That's all that really matters to them. So who cares for them?
Yeah. Okay. Shortstop talk now because I kind of went off on a random tangent there. I think you got too much money. Shortstop talk. Trey Turner, 11 for 300 million. More years, more money than I think we had originally thought.
Less money,
We were thinking in the 8 to 275 range, correct?
more more total money,
Yes.
but less
Less
AAV, which I
AAV.
think is the big thing to take away from this. You look at the way the market typically works is hopefully if everything goes the right way, you have the number one player on the market kind of tell everyone else how it's going to work. And we saw it with Jacob DeGrom. Jacob DeGrom makes his 37, and kind of everyone understands like, hey, if I feel I'm on the same level as Jacob DeGrom, I should be shooting for 37 plus. If I feel like I'm close, maybe I'm shooting for 30 to 32. And if I feel like I'm, maybe a little bit less than Jacob DeGrom, I'm shooting for 25 and below or something like that. This is big for the Angels to see how much Trey Turner got because now you have Swanson and Bogarts who are not on the same level as Trey Turner. Bogarts is a little bit older than Trey as well, which is going to hurt him AAV wise. But this is huge because I think if you see Carlos Correa gets his 30 to 35, which is what we're expecting, who knows? If Trey would have gotten near that 30 to 35 as well, now you're looking at Dansby Swanson and Xander Bogaerts saying, so there's only two of us left. We are the top two shortstops left. We think we should be getting closer to that 30 range. And it's like, ooh, I personally don't think Dansby Swanson's worth $30 million. Maybe Xander Bogaerts on a shorter deal, like a 5-year, 30 million, sure. But now it could push that number a little bit lower for both those guys, where it becomes financially possible that the Angels could go get a Xander Bogaerts on a 5 at 125. So I think this is very huge. It helps the Angels out. Really good for Trey Turner, really good for the Phillies. That team's going to be awesome. That team's going to be a lot of fun to watch. But I think the big thing to look at is how much this is going to help the Angels if they really are going to dive into that shortstop market.
Yeah, and I expect they're in on a couple shortstops, like we mentioned before. They came in second in Carlos Correa last year. They were in on Seager. They were in on shortstops last year. I wouldn't be surprised if they were quietly sneaking around trying to get a shortstop here as well. And yeah, I agree. I think it comes down to two shortstops at the end of the day. I think it comes down to Correa, and I think it comes down to Swanson. Of course, Swanson has the connection with Perry, and I think that value-wise, it's a better contract than what you're going to get out of Correa, but Correa is the better player when it comes down to it. So I don't have a choice there. I don't have a preference. I think Xander's going either back to Boston or going to Arizona, and I think that's going to happen this week as well. So it'll be really interesting to see what happens down the road. You got any predictions for this?
I think Xander ends up in Chicago somehow. I think he ends up with the Cubs. I think they're really trying to rebuild something there. I think he's done in Boston. I think Boston kind of insulted him with their offer, and I don't think he wants to go back. I wouldn't be shocked if Arizona wins that as well. Those are my kind of two teams, Arizona and Chicago. Swanson, don't sleep on the Dodgers. I know everyone, if with the Dodgers, say Gavin Lux is our guy. They're not used to just putting guys out there. They're used to having a surplus of guys. So don't be sleeping on Dansby Swanson to the Dodgers. He makes some sense there, especially with how good they are at putting guys in the right spot with not being able to shift. Swanson's pretty good defensively, might be able to make up for some issues that they could have on the defensive side of things. But Carlos Correa is my guy. I think watching the postseason and watching him on network with Grandy and J Roll, and I forget who the third guy was. I just remember as Grandy and J Roll, and maybe it was Pedro. I think it was Pedro.
I say Pedro or A-Rod.
Yeah, I think it was Pedro. So anyway, those three guys are sitting there and they're asking Carlos Correa, like, why do you do the things you do? What do you go into a clubhouse and talk to guys about? And just hearing how he told them about some of the analytics and like what makes him a good player, what allows some of his teammates to make more money, I think he would be so beneficial to help a guy like Joe Adell, to help a guy like Taylor Ward take that next step, Luis Rengifo take that next step, and Logan O'Hoppe. Like the Angels got some young guys that really need to learn how to take that next step. And maybe he even helps David Fletcher. I think one of the big issues that you and I have with David Fletcher is it's not enough walk and it's not enough hard contact. And Carlos Correa talks about the big things that are going to help you get more money. It's play discipline and it's hard contact. If you can dominate those two things, there's some more into it. Obviously, it's not just those three things, but he really talks about WOBA and WRC plus and things like that. So if you're really wanting to take your game to the next level, you need to dominate the plate. You need to be able to tell whether it's a strike or a ball, take your walks, because getting on base means we have a shot for a run. Just because we don't strike out doesn't mean, what he talks about is his 0 for 10 is way better, and he doesn't use David Fletcher's name, but David Fletcher kind of fits this mold. David Fletcher's 0 for 10 and Carlos Correa's 0 for 10 are completely different. David Fletcher's 0 for 10 are 10 at bats where he is not getting on base because his walk rate is in the 3 to 5% range. Carlos Correa goes 0 for 10 in his 10 ABs. He probably has 4 walks in there. That's 4 opportunities for him to help his team get 4 runs. That's an opportunity for him to, do something else. And then you look at the hard contact rate. Yeah, maybe Fletcher goes 4 for 10. Maybe Correa goes 2 for 10. But Fletcher's are all singles. Correa hits 2, both of his hits are extra base hits. Maybe one's a home run, maybe one's a double. There are more opportunities for him to score runs and get runs, which I think is very, very beneficial. Would be huge to kind of teach Joe Adell, hey, you've got to master the plate. You need to understand plate discipline is the number one thing for you to get better. And I don't know, there's just a lot of guys that really could benefit from him being in the clubhouse, being in the locker room, and kind of talking to guys. So that's why he's my number one. I kind of fell in love with him when he was talking about all that.
You don't got to sell me on it, man. I want a shortstop. I've said that for, I think we've been saying that since last season. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for listening to this podcast here at Talking Halos. Going to make us best Angels podcast out there. We really do appreciate it. If you could subscribe wherever you are listening or watching, go ahead and follow us on all our social medias, Twitter, Instagram, and Facebook, for more information. Of course, if you're looking to maybe get into writing, shoot us a message. We're looking for writers, of course, as always. So, guys, as always, thank you so much.
We just had one go out.
We did. We just had an article go out. Always getting with that. I mean, all the time. So,
why the Angels need a shortstop?
Weird.
Go read it.
Weird, right? It's a good read. Good read. Shout out to boy Diego. So, guys, as always, thank you so much for listening and have a great rest of your day.